Well, we talked a little bit about kind of how you get in a good mental game for races. I think another thing that's on a lot of people's minds right now, even more so than usual with the pandemic, is mental health, and how do we best take care of our mental health given normal life stresses, but on top of that, everything with COVID has just made life so much more challenging. We'd love to hear any thoughts that you have in terms of how you take care of your mental health and things that others can learn from.
Yeah, so mental health is something that I've struggled with since high school. Kind of came to a head in college, and I actually postponed going pro for a year in order to kind of get my mental health under control or work on it quite a bit. And it's something that you're never quite through. It's a constant, something that you're constantly working on, constantly working to improve. I personally struggle with OCD. And so that's been something that has been like really prevalent throughout my life. A big part of it is like seeking out help and not being afraid to ask for help or tell people how you're doing. That's truly been the biggest thing for me. Being able to have a support network and be able to say like, hey, like, I'm not doing great right now. Like, can we just talk about it? And like, I need you guys to hold me accountable. I need you guys to help me. Like being able to talk to my coach about it. My sister in Boston, so having her there to help me, like a really supportive family, really good friend group who kind of understand and who you can be real with. So I think that's the biggest thing. I know with, especially right now, it's hard in COVID just because a lot of us are super isolated. So whether it's talking to people in person, meeting up in a socially distanced way, or even just like calling over Zoom, I think being able to lean on others and to reach out, that's been personally the biggest thing for me.
Awesome. And I really admire, Molly, that you're, as you were coming out of college, that you really were caring for your mental health. I think there were probably a lot of pressures to just go pro right away. And I love that you were really thinking about charting your own course.
Yeah, so definitely having lived that in 2016, when I was graduating college, I was kind of like at the top of my game running wise. I had just won 4 NCAA championships. I was kind of one of the people that they'd been talking about for potentially making the 5K team for Rio, because I had my world qualifier, and kind of like I was like on deck to get a big fancy like sponsorship from a running company, but knowing full well that I was not healthy mentally, and that realizing if I went pro, I probably wouldn't be able to run more than a year or two before I kind of self-destructed, if even that long. And so it was really hard. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, of saying like, nope, I'm going to turn down everything. I'm going to go into treatment. I'm like going to go back to school for a year. I'm going to focus on this. And yes, there was sacrificed a lot financially, sacrificed a lot of my running goals for that time. And it took a long time to get my mental health right, but I'm really glad that I put in the time and I did it then, because I think ultimately it's led to me having a much healthier and more sustainable running career, rather than just running for a year or two and barely making it through and then bottoming out because of my mental health. I feel like I've been able to, I don't know, really like do this, like know why I'm doing this and do this for me and enjoy what I'm doing. So yeah, I think the long-term sustainable approach is always the better choice. It's just really hard in the moment to make that decision. I wondered so many times if I was like, man, maybe that's it. Maybe I just like gave up on all my dreams. But I think in the end, like mental health is worth more than that.
I completely agree with you. I think, when I think about different points in my life, or some of my friends who were, in a totally different context, but are just pushing really hard on this path that often leads to burnout. You kind of get to this point where sometimes like you're pushing harder and harder. And for me, actually, that push was fueled by a lot of caffeine. And I just hit this point where I was like, this is totally unsustainable. Like, why am I doing this? Do I even enjoy this anymore? And how do I get back on a path and create a path that feels right for me?
Yeah, and I think just try and fill your time with so many things, doing so many things, going after these goals, and you don't really take the time to stop and think like, okay, who am I? Why am I doing these things? Like, is this actually bringing me joy? Like, what am I going after? And being able to take that time gave me a chance to really sit and think of like, okay, like, who am I outside of running? What do I actually want to be doing? Why am I running? Like, am I doing this just because people say that I need to be doing it, or because I want to be doing it? And I think it gave me a really good chance to reflect on that and realize, like, okay, I'm doing this because I want to, and I'm going to do it on my own terms.
I love that. I know you obviously love running. Running brings you a lot of joy. What are some other things that bring you joy in life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love playing music. I've got a piano and a banjo back in Boston. That it's a really good stress relief for me. I love just like getting outside, doing stuff, whether that's like hanging at the park with my friends and just like drinking a beer outside. I love like going out and walking, not necessarily hiking. Like, I don't like super intense hikes. But I really love just like exploring places, and walking slowly, because I'm a really slow walker. Paddleboarding, I've got a paddleboard back in Boston. Yeah. And yeah, mostly, more than anything, kind of just like being able to get outside and enjoy the outdoors. Reading, I've actually been reading a ton in this buildup. So yeah, I don't like running books though. Oh my God, I hate running books. I just want to read like literature.
Is there anything you're reading right now that you're really enjoying?
Yeah, I actually am finishing up Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer. And another one that won the Man Booker Prize by a Polish author called Flights. That's really, really good. So yeah, I prefer reading things that are just like totally outside my own realm. I feel like that's kind of what's fun about reading, is that you get a chance to experience something you never would in your normal life.
Absolutely. And I have to ask, how did you get into the banjo? That is not an instrument a ton of people play, particularly maybe people our age. How did you get started there?
Yeah, no. So I like playing kind of like odd instruments. I also do the ukulele and the accordion.
Cool.
Most of the stuff is just things that I found at garage sales. I'm like, oh, that looks like fun. And then just kind of teach myself how to play it.
Amazing. That's awesome. Something that I listened that you had said earlier in a different interview is that you really wanted people to not just remember you for your wins, but remember your resilience, and that you always kept going when things were difficult. Do you cultivate resilience in a like particular thoughtful way, or do you just kind of keep pushing through stuff? I know that's often really hard when things are tough.
Yeah, it's funny because I think a lot of people use this term resilience when it comes to me, but then like I think of it more as just like really stubborn or just really hard-headedly, like, I don't know, especially when just this past, like 2 years ago, I had to get surgery on my hip. And I had a 50-50 chance of ever running again after it.
Oh my gosh.
And so the doctors were basically saying like, okay, like even if you can start running again, like you're going to like have to do it in this certain way. Like you probably won't ever get it back up to like full professional running again. And I think it was just like willful stubbornness. I was like, no, of course I'm going to like keep running. Like, of course I'm going to do this. And like just started back up again. And like, I think if a lot of people would say like, oh, you can't possibly like make an Olympic team off of only 5 months of healthy running. But I don't know. I think a lot of the times it's just like, it isn't necessarily like intentional cultivation of like resilience or whatnot. It's just kind of like, I love running more than anything in the world. This is the only thing I've ever wanted to do, even when I was in college and I was in pre-med classes, but the entire time I was like, all I want to be is a runner. And it's just like, I don't know. You just like have this feeling deep down, like, no, like I can do this. Like I believe that I am meant for more than just this. And so like, yeah, I had to take off 6 months of running, but then even then I'm like, no, like I'm still going to go for it. And I re-hurt my hip after that. And my college coach, I was crying on the phone to him that I thought my running career was over. He's like, no way, you're way too stubborn for that. You'll be running in 2 weeks or something. And I'm just like, yeah, probably. Like, I'm literally too dumb to quit.
Well, that I'm sure that makes the Olympic qualifying race like even more satisfying, just given that you only had a few months of healthy running, and the doctors were like, "We don't know if you're gonna be able to do it anymore." Like that must make that feel extra good.
Yeah, it was just kind of crazy because like making the team going into that race, I had zero expectations. Like we had talked about before the race, like on my best day, I might take third. On my worst day, probably like 15th or something. And I was definitely thinking it was going to be closer to the 15th place than the third. But kind of going into it, like getting up to the starting line, I was just so excited to be in the race. And like, truthfully, I really didn't I didn't care about making the team on that day. I just wanted to go out and see how fast I could run. And then it was just really cool that like I felt like I was just in a really good mental place and all this crazy thing happened. So yeah, it's just kind of funny that sometimes like when you're when you're able to detach from it a little bit and focus not on like these outcome based goals, but just on like I want to be the best that I can be, then like really cool things happen.
That's awesome. I think that's really true. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about coffee. We're a coffee company, obsessed with coffee, and would love to hear.
Yeah.
I know you're a coffee lover as well. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what your coffee ritual looks like, and if that's different when you're training versus when you're not training. I guess you're always training, but when you are
so I
in
was
the
actually
final stages of training.
So I was just getting made fun of the other day because when I'm at altitude camp, I actually bring out my full coffee setup. So I have a portable kettle with me, a little Hario pour over. I hand grind my beans. So like I take my coffee really seriously. I know some pros like try to cut out caffeine while they're in training and only use it on race day. That's not me. Like there's nothing I love more than a cup of coffee in the morning before I work out. I feel like just the warmth and like the ritual of making it like gets me going in the morning. I have run into the problem of too much caffeine throughout the day. I actually, when I was getting ready for the Olympic trials, I was actually working like part-time also as a barista or in a coffee shop. Yeah, in Boston. And we didn't get paid much, but we would get free coffee the entire shift. And so there would be days where I would have, no joke, probably like 8 cups of coffee or something, or like just slamming cortados. And so I have tried to shift into a little bit more, balanced of a caffeine consumption, which is why I love the Savorista coffee, because it's like when I want something in the afternoon before my shakeout, I don't want a full caffeine cup of coffee at 3 p.m. And it's perfect just being able to have a decaf or a half calf coffee. But yeah, I don't know. I made a resolution 2 years ago that I would not drink bad coffee anymore. I'd only drink good coffee. So I've been 2 years strong on that one. Life's too short for bad coffee.
I completely agree. I was actually going to say the exact same thing.